That might be the least interesting part.
Is that the question mark? Is questionable informative?
No, I'm saying that between the beautiful artwork and the delicious spirits of vitae spirits, we're going to have a delicious show today, a fantastic show. So we're really excited for the show today. And we're going to be doing first at 10:30. We've got Maria and Cara De Massimo from the Glass Palette. And then we have Ian Blomsky, who is the founder of Vitae Spirits. So it's going to be really a great show today. And I know we have definitely some interesting financial topics that are in the news to
always
consider.
In the news. Always on top of the news.
You are always going to be well informed and up to date with what's going on in finance when Xavier and I get started on Today Mañana. So be sure to share with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, let us know what you're thinking. Say good morning. Make sure you have your café con leche with you. And,
or just an espresso.
Or just an espresso.
Or a cappuccino.
Or a cappuccino. Or apparently a spirit.
Or a spirit.
It's never too early for Xavier and myself, apparently, to indulge.
That's right. Remember that time somebody told us that sometimes in Italy they give you coffee and they may even just throw some grappa on the side?
They might throw some grappa in there.
And that's heavy duty.
That's what our cousin was saying. Yes. He was out in the countryside. He went to someone. They were giving him some grappa at 10:30 in the morning.
That'll get you going, right?
Indeed. That's for sure.
It goes well with the coffee. You get the caffeine and then you get
you
get the spirit.
Exactly.
I don't know what gets you going more, the spirit or the coffee, but
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're really excited to have you join us on the show this beautiful morning in Charlottesville. It's like perfect.
It's a beautiful morning, no doubt about it.
Humidity, lots of sunshine. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a beautiful day. And so, as always, we're presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel State Farm Agency, and we are partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We've got a really exciting show.
Oh, we do.
Today, we have both art. I mean, I think you could even say both types of art.
No, they are, in a way.
The making of spirits and the way that they do it at Vitae Spirits is, I think it's a form of art.
There is.
In and of itself.
There's an inspiration to it. I'm certain about that.
We'll
find out.
Two types of artists, I think, or three, since we have three guests, three different types of artisans that we have with us today. So first it's going to be Maria and Cara De Massimo at 10:30. And then after that, we're going to be joined by Ian Blomsky, PhD, the founder of Vitae Spirits. And that'll be, I think, really fun. These are going to be some great interviews today. But I know you definitely have some
financial
things on your mind. There's been a lot going on. It's actually been pretty, I'd say in the last 24 hours, definitely some news, things to think about just from a financial perspective.
Always. I mean, I think that's just the way every morning goes for us, right? I mean, as I mentioned a million times before, you walk in and you click on Bloomberg. I mean, I have a Bloomberg screen, of course, and you click on the news, and there's just so much to read. It's like, oh boy, here we go again, right?
Yep.
Although there's some that are repetitive, so it's good, same story twice. But I guess the interesting thing today was the initial jobless claims came in this morning, and it came in at 411,000, which is okay. I mean, it's better than it's been, but I think most people are expecting a much lower number. And for those that don't know, initial jobless claims are the claims that people are putting in because they can't find a job, right? So you want that number to be as low as possible, right? And so I think the markets were expected something like about 380,000. And let's remember, so back just before the pandemic, around January of 2020, they were about 200,000, and that's pretty much the number we're looking for, somewhere in that range. So 411 is still pretty far away from where we want it to be.
So I think I was reading that they're saying it still looks like a pandemic number, not a healthy economy number.
Yeah, it's coming back a lot slower. I mean, if you remember, it's interesting because you remember the third quarter of 2020. right? The quarter-over-quarter GDP went up 33%. And so we were all excited in the sense that, okay, it's starting to come back, right? Exactly. Then the fourth quarter was 4.3. The first quarter just came out again, and they confirmed it at 6.4. So they're healthy numbers. I mean, they're really healthy numbers for economies that are booming in a normal scenario, right? And
Exactly.
I think the last time the U.S. had a 6.4 was a long time ago, right? Younger economies usually have those kind of numbers. But given the fact that we went through a pandemic, I think the expectation was for those numbers to be a little healthier the first two quarters, right?
Now, given how much it declined.
Given how much it declined, that's right.
In the beginning of last year.
Exactly. So I think maybe, now with the number of people that have vaccinated, the number of people that maybe have already had COVID, right? And maybe they don't want to be vaccinated for whatever reason, right? And they just feel like, I'm immune to this disease or this virus, right? Maybe now people will feel much more comfortable, right? And certainly we've discussed the issue of, as long as the government now says, all right, everybody should go back to work, let's get going, and they don't incentivize people to stay home, I think we'll see an economy that begins to maybe grow a little faster.
What's your feeling on these numbers? Is just you're not worried about it from a long-term perspective. You're just seeing it as it's taking a little longer than sometimes you would expect.
I think again, they were a little disappointing because I think at this point most people expected those numbers to be a little lower, right? And so they came in a little higher than expected, but they're coming down, right? And remember, that's one of the numbers that the Federal Reserve looks at, right? So as long as those numbers are high, they're sitting back and saying we have, there's nothing for us to do on interest rates. We're going to keep it low and keep money flowing into the system so that the economy can continue to try to grow, right? Now, globally, this country's doing better than just about any other country, right? So from that perspective, obviously the vaccines have something to do with this. We're doing very well, but globally, the rest of the countries are still lagging quite behind us. So we'll see what happens there.
So that's always raises an interesting question, because I know we get asked this a lot in terms of when people are looking at investment advice, and they're sitting there and saying, how much does the rest of the world? So in other words, if the U.S. looks like it's doing well, but the rest of the world is having slow growth period, how much of an impact does that have in the U.S.? Do people need to be saying, well, I'm worried about investing at all because the rest of the world looks like it's growing really slowly? Maybe they're seeing in the news that the world GDP doesn't look that great. How much do people need to take that into account versus saying, well, I'm in the United States, and as long as I'm investing in United States stocks, I'm good?
And that's a great question, but that's really our job, right? So it's our job to look at that. Right?
Exactly.
From a normal investor, an investor that is a retail investor and likes to invest on his own, I would suggest that certainly staying within the United States border right now is important. Right? And that doesn't mean that a lot of those countries aren't going to come out and they're going to be booming. The emerging markets have done reasonably well. Now, they've done reasonably well. Why? Not because those markets done well, but because the dollar's gone down, right? So it's been a dollar-driven market rather than a booming market for the emerging markets. So something to consider. However, without any doubt, when you see the U.S. come out, and we are the largest economy in the world by far. China's second and catching up, but they're far behind. So once the U.S. gets going, you want to make sure you are participating in the U.S. at this point, right? Whether or not large U.S. companies are able to export the way they like is not right now a concern, because our own country is in large demand to grow. So the answer is invest locally, invest here, and I think that's your best bet, right? Now, again,
in other words, don't be afraid of investing in the United States because you're worried about what the world looks like.
Exactly.
To take a look at the areas where you can invest and where there's growth potential, and don't
worry about it.
Definitely, don't worry. Don't remove yourself from the markets and miss out on the demand that's probably still pent up in the United States, because there may not be the global demand that we're used to seeing.
Exactly. And we've talked about this many times, right? In other words, trying to time the market is the biggest mistake anybody can make, right? And one of the things that we actually were chatting a little bit about this morning is the returns on investment. And I mean, think about it. If you can get a 7% return on investment, every 10 years, your money doubles,
your money.
right? So that's why I always tell people the younger they are, it's much more important for them to begin to save a little bit, because if it's every 10 years, and I mean, if you start saving at 55 and look to plan to retire at 65, 10 years, it just doubled once, right? But if you think about it, start from your 20 or 25 or 30, right?
Over 40
Look
years,
how many
it's
decades,
doubling.
right? Exactly.
It's
So
doubling 4 or
10
5
goes to
times.
20, 20 goes to 40, 40 goes to 80. That's how it grows. That's the exponential growth that you're looking for in a retirement fund, or in your savings, if you're saving for something. So, so the issue is, if you can achieve somewhere about 6-7% return on your investment, which it's not an enormous amount, right? I mean, historically, it's been double that.
And I think that's what sometimes tend to throw people off. They look at like these studies that say, well, your money doubles every 10 years. And they say, well, 7%, that sounds like a lot.
Right.
And in reality, so 6 to 7%, they're not hugely aggressive estimates. Those are balanced portfolios that have a combination of stocks, bonds, which, as we know, are yielding very little but are very safe.
That's right.
Right, and other types of investments. So it's actually not that crazy of a number. You're not talking some incredible level of risk. Oh my goodness, to get 7%, I have to be willing to lose all my money like a casino, or so forth. That's actually a 6%, especially when you see some of the studies with 6%. Is a very conservative estimate.
Oh, it is, yes.
Given what the stock market has yielded, given what you can get over a long period of time.
Exactly.
And so and I think that sometimes can tempt people to go for higher numbers, to say, well, 7%, am I really going to get anywhere? I need to try to get 14 in a year. Maybe if I do this day trading, I can get 20% on one stock because I picked the right one.
Right.
Well, you don't need that.
No, you don't.
All you need is that 6 to 7, and over a long period of time, you will actually achieve financial success.
Exactly, and that's the concept of the slow growth. And again, something we've always said: if you take a certain portion of your portfolio and you say, I'm going to gamble with this, right? I mean, I'm going to. I saw somebody.
Very small, certain percent of your portfolio.
That's right. Somebody recommended the stock, and they say it's going to go from 10 to 100. Go ahead, buy it, right? I mean, it doesn't matter, right?
Just don't put
exactly. Don't put everything in that, because if it goes from 10 to 0, then you're in big trouble, right? So that's the issue. So diversification is important, and the more you diversify, the more potential you're going to have for a moderate growth over time. And some years you're going to look terrific. Some years won't look that great. But over time, and listen, if the stock market has produced about a 13% return since the 1930s, I think you can pretty guess that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, a 6% average return or 7% is probably not. Yeah, it's probably not a number you say, wow, that's very difficult. So it's a great incentive to say, all right, ignore all the noise, right? And just make sure you're in it.
Exactly.
Because like they say in Lotto, you got to be in it to win it, right? This is not Lotto, but.
It's not the Lotto, but by definition, I mean, if you are not participating in the market, you're basically saying, especially in an inflationary environment like we have now, you're basically saying, I'm okay losing money.
That's right.
Every year.
Yeah.
Or more accurately, losing purchasing power.
Exactly.
Because if you keep your money under your pillow, under your mattress, the way I always like to put it is the Federal Reserve is coming every night
and taking a little bit away
from there by inflation. They said, well, you had $100, but it's really only worth $99 now because everything else is more expensive.
99, more like 95 these days, right?
95 these days. They took a whole $5 bill out of there.
Exactly.
And so
the opposite of the tooth fairy, right?
Yeah.
Instead of getting the $5, like where'd it go?
Instead of the tooth fairy,
the anti-tooth fairy.
You get Powell coming in and saying, "Oh, $5. Sorry, I took that out."
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the price, though, of not being in. Because
That's right.
You're basically foregoing gains on your money in return, right, for the safety of 0% return. But in reality, it's a negative return in terms of purchasing power, what you can afford to do with that money.
That's right. And the only way to beat that is to through invest and invest colorfully.
Invest colorfully. Oh, I liked that transition. That's a very good.
I thought you'd catch on.
That's a very good transition. We have a very colorful show and two very colorful guests.
Absolutely.
With us today. And so we're really excited. Another local business we have for you today. We have Maria and Cara DeMassimo. They are the owners of the Glass Palette here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Maria, Cara, thanks so much for joining us today.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Good
morning.
We're really excited to have you on. So, I mean, for those who don't, I mean, we have a beautiful artwork here.
Absolutely.
We've got a mother-daughter duo owning a business. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that, how you started the Glass Palette, how you ended up working together as in a family business. Who'd like to start?
I'll start with that.
Go for it.
I was a high school science teacher and loved to do something with my hands, and eventually, many, many years ago, took a stained glass class and just fell in love with glass. So glass became my hobby. Cara, on the other hand, is a born artist, and I tell everybody freely that she's a better artist than I am, and since I'm her mother, that's okay. I don't have to. So she graduated college as an art major, went to JMU, did what I call the starving artist in New York City bit for a while. Eventually moved
A classic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. She really is a very good artist, a good painter. But glass she learned from me and then took it to greater heights, really. Eventually, when she was living back in Charlottesville and I wasn't teaching anymore, it was really her idea we had talked, let's do a business someday, but it was really her idea to create the Glass Palette. And that's 17 years ago.
Wow.
It's a long time.
Time flies.
And we were also both at stages in our life where when you're an artist, it becomes a problem. How do you sell your stuff, you know?
How do you support your habit?
Yes, that's right. It's very much
Support
a
the
habit.
habit.
That's so
we,
important,
we
right?
are definitely both hooked. Both of us were in a stage in our life where we really didn't want to be on the road with craft fairs and things like that. And we also know realistically that it's hard to just produce and sell artwork. People love it, but they don't spend what you need them to spend. So the idea became, let's let them make the art.
Right.
And also, as picking glass as a medium, not many people have the opportunity to just play with glass without taking very extensive classes and that kind of thing. So we wanted to give people an opportunity, kids included, to actually just come in and have the experience of getting to work with glass without a major investment of time and money and all of that. So that's how we really came up with the concept, and it's been great. We've been really enjoying it.
I mean, it does seem a pretty unique concept because, I mean, I've seen art studios and things where couples can go out and make their paintings and do some, but glass is kind of unique. You don't often think of, I'm going to go and take a glass lesson and learn to work with it. So how does that work? So when people come to the Glass Palette, how do you work with them in terms of teaching them to work with glass? I mean, are they blowing it themselves?
No. So we don't do glass blowing in our studio, and that's one thing that people are confused about at first when they're looking us up, because they're looking for glass blowing, because that's what people know about. But what we do primarily is called glass fusing or kiln glass, which means that all of our glass products are melted together in a kiln. So it is all heat work, but that is happening inside a kiln as opposed to people touching hot things.
Which makes sense.
Which makes it a lot more accessible to people with no experience or young kids. We have kids as young as 5 in the studio working with the glass, making their own projects. It's very hands-on. Oh, yes. Maria's going to show an example of...
That's
this
pretty
is
amazing. Yeah.
a little sun catcher.
A little higher, there we go.
And this is made by a child who's never done anything before.
Wow.
Wow.
Children are wonderful, free. They just play with the glass. And,
They do not worry that
they
don't have any artistic talent.
Adults start the world with, I have no artistic talent. And then they make something wonderful. But getting the adult to just try it. So this is another customer example, picture frame. I mean, we have an unbelievable number of things that customers can make just on a walk-in basis. So they come to us with essentially a 2-hour block of time, which is plenty of time. And we show them every day when people come. We go through, how do you do this? And we explain the process. So they start with a flat, clear piece of glass, and we have trays of glass. We show them how to cut it, and then they cut. Even little kids, you'd be amazed, sit there with their little nippers, and they love cutting the glass. And we don't let 5-year-olds, but if they're at least 8, and if their parents are with them, I mean, they have to have somebody with them, but I mean, with the parents' permission, 8-year-olds will just cut things up. Wow. And then they glue the little pieces down.
Now, how does the color, I mean, how do you get the colors? How does that work?
All of the colors are individual pieces of glass. So there's no paint in this process or any of that. It's just pieces of colored glass that are all cut individually, glued down, and then melted together in a kiln. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so basically all the glass, there's different colored glasses all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just begin to cut the pieces of glass, right? And then you put them together.
You put it together in any way that you like, a design that just appeals to you. This is another little tray, and there's lots of dishware and lots of things made to hang in a window, and it just works. It's a great family activity.
It's beautiful to me that it comes with these vibrant colors, and there's no paint involved. Just like the glass itself just shines.
That's one thing that we love about the medium is that really you can't mess it up. So whatever people put together, whatever people put together comes out beautifully, right. Which is not always the case in the paint your own pottery studios and that kind of thing. Like you can create mud, whereas in the glass studio, everybody is always really happy with what they've made and impressed that they were able to do these things with no experience at all. So,
and then the other half of what we do, so like these projects that I showed you already, are made by customers on a walk-in basis. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we do is more formal classes, right, in order to make things that are, more elaborate. Mm-hmm. You can see that, Kara just finished a class in making flowers. So these are...
That's beautiful.
Wow.
They're fun and...
And also for people with no experience.
Yeah.
So you can come in and do a formal class, spend 3 hours, and make your own flower. Yeah.
How do you get the shapes, though? Because, you mentioned about cutting, but those are like...
there are different tools. The first pieces are all done with a tool called a nipper.
Okay.
And so those pieces are more random. But there are other glass tools, hand tools, that you can cut the glass in specific shapes, break the glass to make, very controlled shapes.
Do you have to file it down also? Is there a filing process or no?
We don't need to with fusing. You do when you do stained glass, because every piece in stained glass has to fit precisely to the next piece.
And we do teach that too.
And we teach that too. We do a lot of different. Like Kara said earlier, we're hooked. So we do all kinds of glass. But with fusing, the wonderful thing about fusing is that the pieces of glass can overlap, bump into. It's going to melt. Now, when it melts, it doesn't lose its shape. It's not like it just becomes a blob. I mean, you look at this little thing. I mean, you can see the little sun in the corner,
right.
and they're specific. But
Kiln kind of perfects the glass. That's what we
Yes.
tell everybody. Don't worry so much about edges not being perfect or any of that, because the kiln just makes it all perfect.
Oh, I get
It's
it,
a
I get
very
it, okay.
forgiving medium.
And
So
then this is just one more piece that I'd like to just show.
Absolutely.
This is done by Kara.
what's your thing?
And this is a way more advanced technique, but we teach this. So when we have customers who want to go more in depth, I mean, these leaves were made individually,
Okay.
Wow.
and they are wafer thin, and then applied to
To the dish.
the dish.
So you put them on the dish, right, which is, I guess,
Flat when you're
glass,
beginning.
and then you melt it together, is that?
That's correct,
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Okay,
So
I
the
get it.
pieces are each made beforehand and then put together and melted again.
Okay.
So it's a multi-step process. But still, it's a process that we teach in one of our beginning level classes, and it's, not the very beginning, but still right there. So a lot of these techniques are just very accessible to almost everyone. Our classes are geared more for adults than kids, but we do summer camps for kids too, where they just dive in and do all the glass for a week, and it's really fun.
And enjoy
Well, I
it
can
while
imagine, yeah. I mean,
That's amazing.
it seems like, it just seems like the kind of thing that could be, for a kid, a lot of fun, just kind of breaking glass, putting it together.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it even to
Yeah,
you
for
as a
me,
big
yeah.
kid.
I do that all the time when I'm not working on glass. But the issue is you could just put it all together, right? And obviously they have imagination, which is important, right? And as you said, they're not afraid, and they put it
That's
all
right.
together, and then it kind of melts together. They must their eyes must get huge when they see this whole thing come out.
Oh, they
They're-
love
they're-
being given that nipper, getting to be
Yeah.
destructive.
They love doing it. One of the most fun things, Kara and I haven't talked about this in ages, but I'm just remembering because of where we are right now. The original location for our business was in the Market Street parking garage.
That's
No.
right.
We were, for 8 years, right next door to Tastings Restaurant.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
And there's a full flight of stairs coming off of the door for where our shop was. She knows where I'm going. So one of the things that we used to do when we had our summer camp there was we would get empty wine bottles from Tastings Restaurant, and we would put the wine bottle, each kid had his own, put the wine bottle in a pillowcase, and then they would throw it down the stairs, and then smash it,
Smashed it.
Wow.
and
We'd
then
be out there smashing glass with them.
make things out of that broken glass.
Wow.
It wasn't just the fact that they were smashing it, it was that, then what do we do with it? So give a kid a chance to break glass, and it was,
In a safe environment.
yes, definitely.
There was a pillow in front of it.
We do,
Yeah,
we do
we-
keep
we-
them safe.
It's a great way to recycle, isn't it?
Yeah,
There you are.
Yeah, we had, they loved that. They absolutely loved that.
Creative destruction at its
Yes,
finest.
yes.
That's
You destroy
exactly
something
right.
and you made
Exactly.
something beautiful
That's
out of it. And
exactly right.
someone already enjoyed the wine.
Don't try this at home.
Don't try to sit home, right,
Go
right.
to the professionals, and they will teach you how to do it safely
Safely,
and beautifully.
right.
Absolutely. So, I mean, before we let you go, where can people find you? Where and get in touch with Glass
So-
Palace? Maybe make an appointment for either the
Yes.
classes or the.
So find us online first at theglasspalette.net or .com, I think both of those. So The
Both
Glass
work.
Palette. And our physical location is over now by Firefly Restaurant in East Market Street, 1304 East Market Street. But you'll see us in the Big Linen Building by Firefly.
Still
You
right
can make,
downtown.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're still
oh, yeah.
right downtown. We've been in each location now 8 years, in our new location as well, and
It's
we
time
can
to move. Another 8 years.
No. But we do take reservations now, so that's important. So visit our website. You can make a reservation Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Our hours got cut back a little bit due to COVID, but we're still in business, so yay.
Good.
Yeah.
That's important.
And we're
Right.
still, ever since the COVID thing, we make reservations only, we control the numbers. Still, we're not comfortable yet to just,
Total walk-in, yeah.
and we keep each family group at their own table, even if that family group is one person.
Wow,
It's
okay.
like one So,
So all the safety precautions, people can feel totally comfortable coming in.
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
And working with the art.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
we sanitize everything. We're trying to keep all the safety precautions, and our customers appreciate that.
Exactly,
So-
definitely.
That's good to know.
Definitely a safe
Absolutely.
and fun
Yeah.
environment to work with glass, to be a little destructive, be a little creative, kids and adults, and it's theglasspalette.net.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
be sure to check it out. Maria, Kara, thank you so much.
Thank you
for
so
Thank
much.
you.
This has been
Thank you
great.
for being-
Been a
Thanks
real
for having
pleasure,
us.
a lot of
A
fun.
pleasure and a learning experience.
Yes,
Wow.
thank you so much.
Never too old to learn.
Come
I
and
love
see
it.
us.
We will
will.
do. For
That's
sure.
right.
At
You have
least
to visit
five.
the studio.
For sure. Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to move these out
that's-
of the way.
That's a lot of fun.
No, it is. That's
does
I
sound-
can't believe that. First I'm saying, how does this work? I mean, there's got to be a lot of
Well, you look
filing
as
and
if-
shining and things
Exactly.
like that.
It looks it's so beautifully made that you sit there and say must take hours and days, and how do you put this
Because
together?
I think of
expertise.
woodworking, right? Where you got to sand it down and then you sand it down again and then you paint it, sand it, paint it, sand it, paint it, sanding, right, until you get it nice and
Exactly.
shiny. This is already glass. I'm saying, how do they do that?
How do they do
Boy,
this?
oh boy.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And then nice that what a beautiful segue that they gave us the wine glass angle, because you can bring
You
the
are,
wine glasses.
exactly.
I'm like, well, what else do we have that?
Now I know what to do
involves
on
alcohol?
wine glasses.
Now we know what to do with the
Break them
wine
and-
glasses.
And then someday bring them over there and do
Sure,
something.
I mean, it's now we know it. Our mother, to be honest,
She would like
my
that.
mom would love that.
Yeah.
The idea
She'd
that
be
you
very
take-
good at it too. She's
She
got.
would. Well, she always has. She's had that artistic talent for a long time, and for her, the idea she loves. Remember, she always saves our wine bottles.
That's right. Well,
From
especially
good
the pretty
bottles,
ones.
The pretty ones. After we've had it, she'll save it, and so now she can get some ideas of what
Well,
of what to do
Nicholas
with
is
it.
the same. He saves wine bottles too, but for a different reason, I think.
For
He,
different.
he likes the label.
Exactly.
and
He
says,
likes to-
This is what I drank.
He likes to save his high quality.
That's right.
His high quality spirits.
Yeah. Well, no, it's good. Yeah.
And now we're going to switch from one type of art
One type of spirit to another.
One type of spirit and art to another type of spirit and art. And we're really excited. We're joined here by Ian Glomsky, PhD. He is the founder of vitae.
Vitae?
Spirits. I want to remember my Latin, my old Latin
That's
is
good, see?
coming back to me. Is like, how is it pronounced? Vitae Spirits, right here in Charlottesville, and they make incredible. I've heard so many incredible things about Vitae Spirits just from
certainly
from
try
numerous
hard.
friends
No, great.
that have been there. And I had a couple that I was talking to
I see
just last
rum
night.
from here. Is that are they both rum or only one?
No,
rum?
so they're both cane spirits.
Okay.
But one's our barrel-aged rum, the other one's a gin. But it's a pretty rare gin in the fact that it's made, the starting material is a cane spirit. It's usually corn wheat, 'cause that's like the
Right,
cheapest
okay,
stuff. But this
okay.
is a little bit different mouthfeel because of it. So,
Oh wow.
High quality.
That rum
Yeah.
looks delicious though.
oh, it's one of my proudest products. I brought that in. So,
The Cuban here is
No, I'm just saying. I
Cuban
mean,
blood is saying rum.
I see the
that's like-
color. I can already smell the aroma. I mean, what can I say?
What do you say? Oh, sorry, Ian. Just to start off,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to start people. Just when I went to go read your bio that Nicholas sent to me,
Huh?
I'm seeing professor of microbiology
Yeah.
at UVA, and so
Yeah.
how do you go from? What's the story behind professor of microbiology, PhD, scientific mind, like to a craft distilling business?
I think it's easy to summarize it as midlife crisis. So, which honestly, in this world right now, it feels like the whole world's going through a midlife
midlife
crisis.
crisis,
Like, I mean,
exactly.
everybody's quitting their
Having to
jobs all
reinvent
over the
ourselves,
place
yes.
and everything, and rejiggering what's important to them.
You did
So,
before it was cool.
I know. I mean, I'm a trendsetter. So, ahead of the curve is what I like to say. So.
That's right. There you are.
So you picked it and you started it, and what led you to craft distillery?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been making alcohol since I was like 18. I mean, honestly, when I went to college, I liked beer, but I couldn't buy it. So I could
there
buy
you are.
barley yeast and hops, and started it all in basically my closet and
Wow.
everything. So, and that's in many ways that's why I became a medical microbiologist too. Is learning microbiology for making beer. Took my first microbiology class and did extra credit like projects to isolate all the weird things that are growing in my beer. But yeah, so I've been making alcohol for a long time, but I'm also a person that likes to always be learning something new. And so kind of as I progressed through the years, I kind of felt satisfied with my place with beer, so I was looking for new things in the alcohol world to do. Honestly, my family's in the wine business. My brother started 2 wineries, so I'm involved in that.
Okay.
Even this weekend, we have board of directors meetings that we're putting together and everything. So I had some of the wine world, but then at the technical level, you have to make good beer and make good wine to make good spirits. And so it's basically you do those basic fermentations, and then you put them in the still, and that's what a spirit is. So that's another level of kind of complexity and technique.
Right.
If one's always challenging yourself, that made sense for me to kind of move in that direction.
Wow.
So how many different spirits do you have?
It's always changing. Okay. It depends on whether you count everything that's ever been produced but is all gone now, or whether what we have in the market now. So we have about 12 right now.
Okay.
We basically kind of have like 2 product lines. The pretty ones that are kind of colored. Laura Gasting here, right here in town, she's a botanical artist and she did drawings for all of our bottles.
Oh, okay.
She's awesome. Like she's a fantastic artist. But these are basically the things that we call our core products that you can find in basically all the ABC stores. And we make them pretty because they're sitting on a shelf by themselves. They have to talk for themselves.
Right.
And these are things that we can produce a lot of. When we can only sell through the ABC, the Virginia ABC. And we have to maintain a contract with them. So we have to always have the inventory. Like we have to basically sign a contract saying, we will give you this inventory at all times. And they'll pull you from the shelves if you don't. So that's a commitment, and it's things that we can produce a lot of. Our second line then is kind of what I call our distiller's reserve. And you can kind of see we don't invest quite as much in the labels and everything like that.
But that's a nice, clean look.
Exactly. I mean, we put thought into it. But honestly, this label is significantly cheaper to produce because this is something we only sell directly. We're always hand selling this. We only sell it at our tasting rooms or at like festivals or something like that. So there's always a person talking about it and kind of like explaining it right then and there. But these are also small production. I'm not sure if like the camera's enough to pick it up, but we actually put bottled number.
Wow.
So if we make 100 bottles, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 100.
Okay.
Because we just don't have that many of them, and it's usually because we can't. Like just there's some kind of bottleneck, or it would take significant like equipment, capital expenditures to be able to produce a bunch of it. So these are all things that are small production, only available from us. And these are the things that kind of overturn quickly because we don't have much of them. And one reason why I got into this, as you guys are bringing up before, is kind of like my ability to express my creativity. And so this is the realm, these distillers reserves are the realm where I get to express my creativity. So there's always kind of something new coming out. Like this Friday, tomorrow, I had a collaboration with a chemical-free Christmas tree farm. And every spring they have to cut the little tips off the blue spruce and the balsam fir. And I took them all. Got 150 pounds of those, and I distilled them basically into something that flavor profile-wise is similar to a gin. It can't be called a gin because it doesn't have juniper berry in it, but it's this amazing kind of refreshing, aromatic.
From the pine.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Spruce and fir.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's different. And the actual tips of the tree are pretty different than the regular boughs. The freshly grown things have a different kind of aromatic quality that's much more citrusy. And actually, in the colonial era, quite a few people added spruce tips and stuff to beers and stuff because there's a bit of vitamin C in there. So in terms of scurvy and all that, it helped stave off diseases also.
That's
so.
I love that. Your drinking is good for you too.
Yeah, a lot of these things, and gin in particular, those are all kind of designed like with herbal remedies to some degree in a day and age when we didn't have precise pharmaceuticals.
That's right, and that's absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean that's what wormwood. There's artemisian in there. That truly gets rid of worms, and that wormwood's what's in absinthe and a bunch of that's in vermouth. Verm, as in worm.
Vermouth. Oh,
that's the derivative of vermouth too.
I didn't know that.
Goodness, I did not know that.
Yeah.
It actually has a medicinal purpose. I have to tell that I have some friends that
So when
love
we eat
their
some of that
absinthe,
salad, it's
so-
got those worms. We eat the vermouth, drink the vermouth in.
There we go. And we're
Done.
cured. We'll be
Absolutely.
You know, those glasses look really dry.
cured. They do.
Oh, they really do.
I think they need a little something. They need a little something.
need to get
I
wet.
don't know.
I'm going to pour in a little bit of. This is our barrel aged rum. This is actually our second release, so it's batch 2. But this is
That's what that means.
our rum, which starts off as evaporated sugarcane juice. We don't use molasses. And we age it in bourbon barrels from Ragged Branch Distillery, kind of out in the Ivy area. There's 2 bourbon barrels blended into this, and then 1 wine barrel. It's a Pinotage wine from Livingston Winery. So we blended those all together, so it actually adds a lot of complexity.
I can smell it. I can scent it already.
2.5 years in the barrel.
2.5.
Yep. And all that color is from the barrels. It starts off colorless like water, but then when you put it in a barrel, all the brownness comes. It's from the oak, essentially. So
I could even just smell this all day.
And just as a little bit of heads up, this is one of our higher proof spirits. So this is at 90 proof, which is a little bit higher than your average rum.
I'll be singing opera by the end of this. Please do. No, you don't want to hear it, though.
You asked for it already. Oh, that is good.
And it's funny because at 90 proof feels a little bit wimpy to me because like I'm tasting stuff as it comes off the still at like 180 proof and stuff like so. It's like, oh, this is kind of like water. But,
no, that's not bad.
But I have to tone it down for the average customer a little bit. So
that's good. You can taste it, the flavor.
Yeah.
It's just so
and it's smooth too.
That's the beauty of it. When I'm hanging out with rum geeks, this is what I break out. You know, because this is really kind of our flagship, the thing that I'm proudest of. It's not necessarily a bestseller, once again, because I can only produce so much. I only have so much space for barrels. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. And I've done quite a few blind tastings where I basically bring out my rum collection. I probably have like 50 or 60 bottles of just things that I've picked up and I like a lot. I put brown bags on them and pour them. And we've never won, but we're usually in the top like 5 or so. So I figure that's an accomplishment versus
that really
some
is.
of those
That really is.
That is. Oh, it is that. I mean, that's one of the best I've ever tasted.
You said the number 2 means the second batch.
Yeah.
It means that this is the second time you make it, or you made one batch and then you make another one the same time.
Yeah. So
frame.
it's they're spaced out by 2.5 years. So basically, I have a bunch of barrels, and they're all aging. And so 2.5 years ago, I had some barrels that were 2.5 years old, and that was batch 1. And honestly, that was a similar setup, but slightly different. That's why I remark what batch it is.
Okay.
Because that one was 2 barrels of bourbon barrels, but from a different distillery, from Smooth Ambler over in West Virginia. And then the wine barrel in that one was a Cabernet Franc wine barrel from Keswick Vineyards. So that's why they're slightly different. Right. And so that's why I keep batch numbers. But I plan to basically every 2.5 years be releasing this. So I have ones aging right now that I will blend together to make batch 3.
Beautiful.
How long does something like that last? I'm sorry.
It never goes bad per se. You know, like it's much too high alcohol for anything to grow in it, like for it to spoil.
Right.
But I have found that in the bottles things evolve a little bit. It depends on what the product is. Rum, much less so than things like gin, like where there's aromatic oils from all the herbs and spices.
Right.
That does change, and that's what I'm not sure if we mentioned vermouth. That's why it's usually suggested like. And vermouth's usually like 20% alcohol up there. Right. So it's not going to grow anything, but you should keep it in the fridge because all those aromatic oils and stuff like that, they can oxidize, they can just blow away. So it depends. Never is it going to go bad and hurt you. Some people think it actually matures a little bit positively after it's been opened. It kind of gets a little more oxygen and opens up. So I can't do a universal advice because it's also a matter of your taste.
Right. Yep.
So.
Wow, can we also try that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's not that
chug this rum before we move on.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like we have any bottles that really last years and years, but it'd be nice to. It was just nice to know, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And so this is what we call modern gin, and modern gin is basically a category of gin now, and that kind of is contrasting what I would maybe say is classic London dry gin, which is very juniper berry forward. So the juniper berry is what defines gin. Literally, our federal government says you must have the predominant flavor of juniper berries to call it gin.
Okay.
So that's what makes gin. And so classic London dries are very juniper-y, I find. And modern is kind of going this direction where we're adding a bunch of other stuff to it. So we have 17 other herbs and spices in there on top of that. And so there's lemongrass, there's lavender, there is cardamom, there's citrus. Actually, I collect semi-wild oranges around Charlottesville called the hardy orange, and that's one of the components. So there's a bunch of things. I almost never can list all 17 just because I can't remember. It's not like a secrecy thing. But
and so local, I mean, I locally picked.
Yeah, no, and I try to do that as much as possible. And I'm always kind of looking for sources and stuff like that to supply more pieces.
That's good, though.
And this is honestly, this is our most awarded product. I mean, I kind of consider myself a rum distiller, but but this has won a lot of awards, so
Yeah.
it's
I can see why.
and 'tis the season for gin right now too.
It
so.
really is. Absolutely. That's right.
Oh, so beautifully floral.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
To be honest, I
you
could
can-
even. I love drinking it. I could even imagine like you put this out in a town and just let this smell. And, like instead of getting a candle,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
put this out there, and people walk by. I'm like, "What's your
Ooh.
candle?" And it's like, "No, this is my gin."
People have literally said we should put this in a candle. So like you light it up and have it kind of aromatized around the room. And
I mean, I wouldn't waste not drinking it.
Yeah.
because it's so good. But
Oh, it's
Yeah.
delicious. Wow.
yeah, and this is 90 proof too, so this is a little bit higher alcohol, but like it's.
it doesn't feel like.
That's what I
No.
say, which is good and bad, but
I mean, well, for me,
Exactly.
just the beauty, like you taste it, it goes down
Yeah.
smoothly,
yeah.
and you wouldn't even know. I mean, it doesn't burn you or be like,
No, not at all.
I can't speak because I
No,
just drank
this
alcohol.
really covers your whole mouth with
Yeah.
flavor. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's-
and see, that's what I was saying about in terms of the base alcohol. So gin's really, the alcohol component of it can come from anywhere. It's kind of like vodka, where it could be potatoes, it could be honey, it can be carrots, it could be anything. And we were one of the few that have a sugarcane base. Essentially, our facility is gluten-free because everything comes from sugarcane. We don't make whiskeys.
Where do you get the sugar canes from?
So it's about 80% of the sugarcane industry in the United States is just a little bit west of New Orleans. So basically we get all of our starting material from Louisiana.
Okay.
There's a little bit in Florida, a little bit in Texas too, but it's mostly
Interesting.
Louisiana.
Yeah. I would have thought Florida, but
Yeah,
I
and
guess-
I think it's just almost like a history type thing.
Okay.
That's where it developed, and I think honestly having a port right there, like New Orleans,
Yeah,
like
that's
to
right.
move
That's
things
right.
and everything,
Yeah.
made it like a more commercial center.
Wow.
So
So it's made from sugarcane that is distilled.
yeah, and so
Wow.
that's ultimately in terms of our federal government defines what you're able to call things. Like every single product, I have to send in a recipe. It has to be approved in terms of safety and things of that sort. But then once you have that recipe, I have to then get our labels approved, and that basically has to jive. Like if it's something that starts off as sugarcane, specifically sugarcane, you ferment it and distill it, that's a rum. If it was a grain, like corn, wheat, barley, that's a whiskey. And so those things have to be in agreement. So I can't call it whiskey because of that. But it has to be sugarcane in particular, though. It can't be beet sugar. It can't be palm sugar. Can't be sorghum molasses or anything. It has to be from the sugarcane plant. Anything, though. It can be white table sugar. It can be turbinado sugar. It can be molasses. It has to just be from sugarcane.
And that's
Now,
incredible.
but the gin though. So you mentioned it's also from sugar cane, but
Yep.
But it doesn't have to.
but it's not a rum. So how does
Right.
that work?
And that's basically because the juniper berries on top
Because you
of
put
it.
the juniper berries. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that it's one of those things where like there's almost like a categorization tree, and you kind of like go in these different directions of how they define things. And honestly, I have a few products that aren't even in that categorization, so they become distilled spirit specialty, and then you have to come up with fanciful names for them. Like I have this one thing that's kind of I released it a couple weeks ago. That's an apple brandy with orange in it, and that's not defined. So I call it fruitiness, and that's
Prettiness.
so we always have this certain level of regulations that we have to kind of work within whenever we're doing this type of stuff.
That's amazing. That's just. And so when
This
people
is-
come to the distillery here downtown, what are some of the things that they experience there? I guess they can
Yeah.
obviously they can get some of what you
Yeah.
sell
Yeah,
directly.
yeah, yeah.
But do you do tastings? And
Yeah, and so just to clarify a little bit, we do have two locations in town.
There's two?
Yeah, so the distillery itself is over in the Rose Hill neighborhood on Henry Avenue.
Okay.
And we have a tasting room there. That was like our original tasting room. We call it tasting room number one. Like
Number
just when we're
one.
doing shorthand with text and stuff like that. And that's where the real production goes on.
Okay.
We produce so many flammable liquids, we kind of have to be in manufacturing zoning. So it's not easy to be in a commercial area. And that's why, like, honestly, Henry Ave is a little bit off the beaten path. But that's where the stuff goes down. Like, that's where I do the tours. I basically all day Saturday, I'm doing pretty extensive. And like, I try to read the people. Sometimes I go down real deep if they're kind of like science geeks and stuff. But sometimes it's superficial. But I do tours. But also I do I'm not sure if you've heard these, but they're called Airbnb experiences.
Right, yeah.
Where basically if you get an Airbnb lodging, it pops up saying things to do in Charlottesville. And one of those things, I do a 2-hour, more in-depth kind of like quickie distillation course
Wow.
for that also.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
I'd love to
And
do
I'm
that
actually
myself.
developing a cocktail course too, kind of like the theory behind cocktails, because that's what in our tasting rooms, we pour tastings of all of our products, but also we make cocktails with them. We are limited. We're not a restaurant. So we're only allowed to do 3 ounces per person per day. Our tastings are usually half-ounce pours, so you could kind of taste like 6 things, and then we have to turn you off. But our cocktails have 1.5 ounces, which is a standard shot.
Okay.
But after that, we have to shut people down. And so that happens at the distillery.
That just means they have to come back more than once.
Well, and I was about to say, but we have a second. So our tasting room on the downtown mall now, at the corner of First and Water, is a different license. Like that is a distillery unto its own, so people could get 6 ounces if they go to both.
There you are.
But the downtown is technically a distillery also. I'm aging barrels and stuff there, so that's storage production. But it's a little bit more geared towards foot traffic, because obviously it's a much different environment down there. And so we're getting much more exposure to kind of out-of-towners. They're just walking by or whatever. We also just got a slushy machine, so we're making frozen cocktails down there with those things twirling around up there. That gets a lot of attention also. But we do events. Like I think I was talking earlier, like this last weekend we did a SPCA event where the Charlottesville Albemarle SPCA brought in a bunch of available dogs and puppies, and they're running around and like usually like I have to check out how it worked this weekend, but we usually get a couple dogs placed also.
That's
so
that's beautiful.
We do lots of stuff like that.
That's fantastic, giving back and just really
absolutely. And that's something I kind of alluded to on some of this, but I'm working on I'm trying to give us personality by reflecting the community. So I talked about the Christmas tree farm we worked with. We work with Ace Biscuit and Barbecue. We do a grilled sugarcane rum. That's our golden rum. With Mud House Coffee Roasters, I work with them. We make our coffee liqueur with them. And even so, not being a restaurant, also in our tasting rooms, we're not allowed to make food. So what we do is we have relationships with all of the restaurants right around the tasting room. We have all their menus in there, so people can just call up Jack Brown's, they'll bring them a burger, or Luce or Vunudos, and they'll bring it right into our tasting room too. So
I love that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no reason to basically not just go have dinner there, order it out, and
it's great for everybody. It's good for the restaurants, it's good for us, it's good for the customers.
Sure, exactly.
Small business connection and getting everybody growing together.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Oh, and you got some props here. Camille Anderson says, Ian. With 4 exclamation marks, so I'm very excited.
Camille's great.
And Rob Bialk says, Ian is a brilliant distiller. Which
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, with a PhD, he has to be, right? I mean,
Why did we do it just from tasting? Like you and I are like, yep, exactly. Brilliant distiller. Here, it's so good, very good.
Thank
you. I mean, any last things about? I mean, we know people now know where to find you.
Yeah.
Anything else about that's unique about the experience, or some other ones that you have that you think people would be interested in trying?
Yeah. So, like I said, we have the new we call it Conifer, that the Christmas tree spirit that's coming out. But also too, this is really meant to be an in-person experience. So in many ways, I see our competitors as the big international brands.
Right.
And so I'm always trying to think of things that we can provide that the big international brands cannot. And one of those things is that face-to-face kind of interaction.
Exactly.
You're not going to get the head of Jack Daniel's walking through the distillery with you, giving you a tour. And all of my people are really well trained and really enthusiastic about this, so we can like talk and talk and talk. And that's why I said we kind of try to read people about how deep they want to go. Honestly, the masks made that job much more difficult, kind of seeing whether they're falling asleep under that mask. Or
you have to jump in the eyes. Like, is it glazed over? Is it?
No, but I mean, because it's in many ways, I think distillation is an underappreciated art because it's illegal. Like people can appreciate beer making because a lot of people took up brewing at home,
right.
so they understood what was behind it and what it took. Distillation, there's basically no version that you can do at home that's legal. Anytime you go above 20% alcohol, it's illegal.
That's illegal. Okay.
And so people do it, but you have to be a little bit discreet about it and all that.
So there's a chance to learn about it in a way that you didn't before.
Exactly.
It's you can only experience it by going to someone who's an expert in it.
And so hopefully that makes it fun for people, but also to some degree it makes them appreciate what we're doing too, to recognize the art of the process. So
and the effort that goes into it.
Yeah, really.
That's incredible, and so definitely. I mean, definitely, people need to go check it out. I mean,
absolutely,
this is fantastic.
And there's 2 places. I mean,
awesome.
this is great. One where you can go get deep into how it's done, and the other one's like I'm just kind of here to have fun.
Super deep weekend long one where it starts like Saturday morning until Sunday night, where we go through the whole process.
Wow.
I do the childhood a little bit because like fermentation takes like a week or so. So I kind of start the fermentation, then magically I have another one ready to go to put in the distill. But yeah, so I do a really pretty intensive one too.
You can learn all about it. You can taste it. So I know it's vitaespirits.com is where people can find it, and they can see the tours that you have and the hours of the tasting rooms. So I mean, definitely.
No, I highly recommend it because it's delicious.
I can't wait to go. We have to go and try that conifer one.
Yeah, we do. We do. Yes.
Because this is incredible. Thank you so much, Ian, for joining us.
Thank you, Ian. This has been great.
You guys brought me down here.
Oh no, this has been a blast.
Awesome.
A real blast.
Just come here every Thursday. No big deal. No problem.
You can be our recurring guest.
Happy hour. I try that today, mañana.
Happy morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ian.
A real pleasure. Oh, that's good.
That was delicious.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I had heard good things about it, so I already had high expectations coming in, and they just
elevated
even further out of the water. Such a good show today. Art on so many levels. Just true artisans and people you can see the passion that they have for what they do.
That's right.
And just like one of the beauties of Charlottesville and just the small business.
It's funny because when you grow up at first, you just especially we grew up in a family, the European family. They have all different kind of wines and drinks and things like that, right? But you don't drink it, you don't think about it, right? Like the CNRs and stuff like that. We enjoy, but you don't think about it. You don't know what goes into it. But when you meet something like that explains to you what goes into it, and then changes, right? The recipe a little bit, and you exactly, and you just taste that a little bit. Go, I didn't realize you could do that. I mean, really, I just thought. Rum is rum, right?
It really is like the beautiful blend of art and science.
Right.
But it's a scientific process.
Yeah,
but there's so much artistic creativity that is involved.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. Yeah.
Delicioso, as they would say in Spanish.
Querido. As they say. No, fantastic, man. And we have some exciting news. A friend of the program, amigo del programa, Johnny Ornelas. I happened to just be on Facebook. I was noticing that at his El Mariachi Mexican Bar and Grill, there's going to be a fun art night.
Oh, una noche de arte.
A noche de arte, a fun art night on Sunday, July 11th, from 6 to 9. It looks like he's got some. Basically, I mean, they've got the Come Hungry and Thirsty. He has a venue partner. They're going to be canvas painting, an art instructor in small group settings.
Wow.
So, I mean, you could just go, and this, I mean, at El Mariachi, I mean, the incredible food that they have.
Absolutely.
At El Mariachi Bar and Grill. So be sure to check that out to see. I mean, he's a fantastic guy. So the date is
Julio, el 11 de julio.
El 11 de julio.
Muy bien.
De las 6 por la tarde.
De las 6
de la noche hasta las 9.
Hasta las 9 de la noche, muy bien.
Hasta las
3 horas de festividades.
Festividades, comida, bebidas.
Arte, bebidas.
Bebidas, claro que sí.
Muchas bebidas, muchas margaritas.
Margaritas y todo lo bueno. Todo lo bueno. So all the fun stuff. So be sure to check it out July 11th. You can see it on Facebook. Just look up Fun Art Night at El Mariachi Mexican Bar and Grill.
Wow.
So that sounds like a blast.
That does, yeah.
As well. Oh, my goodness. And then, I mean, even next week, when we're deciding, next week, I think we'll get a really cool finance fill-in, because we're going to have Jennifer Lehman from Hanselman Weeble, CPA.
Oh, wow.
So
CPA on board.
You and I definitely
I gotta
brush up on your taxes, because we're going to have some fun.
I can't just say anything I want. I got to make sure I say it right. Right? Is that the key?
Yeah, exactly. You have to pay attention.
That's right. Pay attention. That's right.
We'll learn some taxes.
Oh, I'm sure. Listen, I learned all the time. I mean, I learned today.
We learned today.
Absolutely.
It's just an endless learning process. So, I mean, really, really fun. So glad Ian was able to make it. Maria, Tara, just so much beautiful art and local business. And thank you, of course, our viewers for joining us, for making this such the fun time that it is.
Thank you for sharing the drink with us. I mean, I hope you enjoyed it also.
Exactly, and be sure to get the full experience.
That's right.
By going to the Vitae Spirits yourself. And just, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Jerry and Judah. I love Seville. Always a blast to be on the set here. And of course, thanks to our sponsors, to Emergent Financial Services, to Cristel Noel, State Farm Agency, and of course to For Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Virginia. So as always, it is a blast to be with you all, a fun time, and we'll see you next week. But until then, hasta mañana.